You good? Yeah. What's that? I said,
It's good to see so many people here. My name is Jamel, and I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. It's our pleasure to be organizing this community meeting regarding the I-77 highway expansion with Not Just a Smile.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor. I am the founder and director of Not Just a Smile. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that's dedicated to spreading awareness of mental health in underrepresented communities or Black and Brown communities through community events.
Thank you, Taylor. So just to give a little bit of information about the Party for Socialism and Liberation, we are a revolutionary organization dedicated to building a mass movement for socialism in the United States. We are a multinational, intergenerational organization of working class people made up of leaders, activists, workers, and students of all backgrounds. We are here today to hear from those who have been and are continually affected by urban renewal here in Charlotte. As we know, this struggle is not anything new. In fact, developers have been eroding and degrading Black communities for decades now, which has led to the displacement of thousands of families. We all know that traffic is horrible, especially on I-77, and we do recognize that it needs to be fixed. But spending $3.2 billion on express toll lanes is not a viable solution for the majority of Charlottans. First of all, it's been proven through extensive research that adding more lanes does not actually reduce traffic. Second of all, the environmental pollution from the traffic will have adverse health effects which will poison the community, especially the children living in the area. And thirdly, like we mentioned previously, this project will be displacing families who have deep roots in the area. We are demanding an end to the I-77 expansion and to demand that our officials use our hard-earned tax dollars for what the people actually need. It is disgraceful to use our money to displace people who have lived in the city for generations. There are plenty of other solutions to fix traffic besides building toll lanes. For example, during the pandemic, buses were free. So we know that it's possible for the city to provide this. On top of that, the Blue Line cost $1.6 billion to construct. With the money that they're using to spend on this toll lane, we can build 2 entirely new light rail lines. So why do Black families have to suffer just so that a private contractor can receive $3.2 billion of our tax dollars? We pay taxes for our communities, and this money should go back to the community and not to a private contractor. Yesterday, we had a free prison ride initiative, and we rode out to a Southern Correctional Institution. And while we was out there, we seen inmates who were working for NC Department of Transportation cleaning up the bridges. And this is because NCDOT utilizes prison labor for as cheap as 20 cents an hour in a system which disproportionately affects Black and poor people. And so not only are our tax dollars being misused, but people are being subjected to slave labor in the name of work experience by NCDOT. So we have to draw these parallels to see the structural pattern of racial capitalism. And so with that, I'm going to pass it to Taylor to talk about the history of I-77 and its impacts on mental health.
Thank you, Jamel. So, for context, with the 50s came an explosion of growth in Charlotte. Not much different than what is happening today. That created a need for roads to sustain life. And the solution was to wipe out blighted neighborhoods, and that meant neighborhoods with absentee landlords and rundown housing. What they'll have you believe is that this is a symptom of neighborhoods run by Black people, and not acknowledge that this is the result of redlining that kept African Americans from buying homes. The why didn't matter. What mattered is that these areas were disrupting progression, and instead of growing them up, they tore them down. I've been having open discussions for a few weeks now about the I-77 expansion, and 3 times I have heard the same sentiment. What do you expect them to do? They can't just move I-77. But my problem here is not that I-77 can't be moved, but it's that from inception, it was built on top of neighborhoods like Brooklyn and Greenville that were once the Black Wall Street of North Carolina, echoing the sentiment from James Baldwin that urban renewal is Negro removal. And the impact? Generational trauma. Studies show that losing community, support systems, and cultural anchors contribute to long-term stress, depression, and anxiety, a deep sense of loss that no bridge or toll lane can ever fulfill. It shows up in the anxiety of not knowing if you'll be able to stay in your home. It shows up in the loss of cultural space and the severing of community ties. It shows up in the stress of wondering if children will be able to live in a place and experience a place that was built by love. A quote from Alexis Gum says, "A deadly system doesn't have to seem like it's targeting you directly to kill you consistently. A system can still cut parts of you daily, steal parts of yourself that you need, just in its daily functioning and in the legacy of its original purpose. If you think that this is not about you, then it is too late. Community means standing hand in hand. Community means being inconvenienced. Community means using your voice when your neighbor has lost theirs. We are experiencing a symptom of what happened to Charlotte over half a century ago, and it's up to us to break the trauma before another generation is affected. Now, there are 3 important things that we want to happen today. One is we want to hear from people who will be affected and have been residents in Charlotte. We want to talk about what's been happening in this fight against the I-77 expansion, and we want to prepare for the upcoming City Council meeting with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. We want to go in as a united front and push for our demands. And what better way to do that than to take a look around this room, because it shows the strength and what remains the heartbeat of Charlotte, where these communities once stood. And now, I'll pass it to Trinity to give an overview of the I-77 expansion.
I want to apologize. I went a little too hard at the protest the other day, so my voice a little, But I do want to start off with a question for the room. Just a raise of hands. Who has road rage? Okay, don't lie. Like, raise them high. I want to feel safe in the room. Okay, I also have major road rage. It might be a little bit of a problem. But whether you have road rage or you're a liar, everyone in here should know that the traffic in Charlotte is terrible. I-77 is one of the worst roads to be on during rush hour. Merging onto a highway that has just a sea of red lights, my worst nightmare. I genuinely hate when I catch myself on the road at 5 p.m. I know that a normal 20-minute drive can turn into 45 minutes easily. So, the NC Department of Transportation proposed a solution in October of last year to fix the traffic on I-77 by adding 2 paid express toll lanes in each direction, 11 miles from uptown Charlotte to South Carolina. The cost of this project is expected to be $3.2 billion. This will destroy neighborhoods, as shown in this map. These are historically Black communities. We have Oaklawn, McCrory Heights, Biddleville, Wesley Heights, and Pineville Cemetery, which is a historically Black cemetery. Also, if you'll see over here, we have Johnson C. Smith University, which is an HBCU as well. So this plan is very obviously not going to fix traffic. As mentioned, this project is projected to cost $3.2 to $3.7 billion, but the contract awards are expected in 2027. This means we still have an entire year to fight this before they even get the money to start construction. Above all, it's disgusting that these decisions were made without any input from the people whose lives this project would impact. Most of the people that we spoke to during outreach had not heard anything about their homes potentially being in the zone of the expansion. We spoke to these communities in historically Black neighborhoods, and most people had owned their homes and lived there for almost half a century. Personally, I feel like I move a lot, and I never get to know my neighbors for real. But the people that we spoke to knew their next door neighbors by name, and they spoke fondly of each other. The thought of whole communities being torn down for a road that only those who have a little extra pocket change can use is disgusting and wrong. So for those who don't know, outreach is when we go door to door talking to the community about this issue. We might have knocked on some of y'all's doors in the room as well. But it was dark and it was cold. But we went out to speak to the community because it's important that people are at least aware of what's going on and what could potentially happen to something as essential as their home. NCDOT clearly does not think this way. They couldn't care less. NCDOT knows that if they were to talk to the community up front, this plan would not be popular in the slightest, and that's why they don't. They want to keep it on the low until they get the money and they start construction. But we cannot forget the racism that is rampant in this plan and for this expansion and NCDOT as a whole. Most of the people whose doors we knocked on were Black women. Many of them were also facing health issues. They worked hard to acquire their homes. There is no reason for NCDOT to demolish their livelihood. This is not a solution. And as Jamel mentioned in the beginning of our discussion, NCDOT has no problem using prison labor, outright slavery. The racism is in our face, blatant, and there is no hiding it. Yes, there is a major traffic issue and it needs to be fixed. But instead of a paid toll lane, why not invest in a safe and expansive light rail system or free buses? This is clearly not about fixing the traffic at all. This is just a way for some billionaire developers to make money off of real problems. Why must we constantly pay out of pocket for the problems that capitalism creates? With all that being said, we must demand that NCDOT and these private developers listen to the people and stop the I-77 expansion. So to close, I would like everyone to repeat after me. We ain't paying no toll.
We ain't paying no toll.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
We ain't paying no toll.
We ain't paying no toll.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Thank you, Pastor Jim. So to conclude, we will not allow history to repeat itself. We will not allow for racist policy to be inflicted on us as the only solution. We will not allow communities to be torn apart. We can and we will stop this expansion. Nothing can stop our united front. We are powerful, and when we fight, we win. Thank you.
And I think that that's exactly what this 77 expansion is doing. You are going straight again through a Black community. You moved us from Brooklyn, then you said, okay, we're gonna push y'all over to the west side. Now you're pushing us over to the west side. Now you're like, okay, well now we want that land back. We're gonna push you, somewhere. And quite frankly, I'm just tired of it. And I think it's a great opportunity for those people who say that Black Lives Matter, Black Lives actually mattering, us as humans. It's time for y'all to step up and back us up on this. At the end of the day, I'm tired of being moved. I'm tired of my people being moved. I mean, it's just not logical. Like, you think it's okay to cut through a cemetery for a toll lane? Like, is that illegal? Isn't that illegal? I thought it was illegal to move dead bodies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, make this make sense to me, right? And you can't do anything else other than cut through yet another Black community. Like, is that always your go-to? Why do we always have to be the first line of sacrifice? I'm tired of it.
Hi, I'm Susie. I'm new. I wanted to know if anybody has reached out to try to, potentially gain solidarity with other groups, specifically with like a genealogy group. UNC Charlotte has a genealogy, and I just checked, they do have like an African-American heritage record keeping, and I think it would be, awesome and powerful to invite them to also come to this kind of thing. Maybe they care. I would think that they would care, especially since that's what they specifically study. If we can't convince people that people's homes can't be destroyed. I mean, I know, like you said, even in death, Black people experience racism. Maybe we can still, reach out to people who care about that. And there's groups that do care about cemeteries being destroyed.
I think what both of you said is important, and we need to talk to people about this. We need to instill this in people. We should be upset with what's happening. We have a long history of basically this happening from redlining, the freeways being built, urban renewal. So we should be more upset about this, and we need to do something about it. And that's why it is time to get organized. Because like you said, we are always on the forefront of these struggles, right? And it's going to be at our expense. So what do we do to fight back against that? You can't be passive, and you can't just sit back and not do nothing. So you got to talk to people. You got to convince them of what we have to do, and that is to get organized, and that is to look at these solutions, these alternatives, right? So, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Hi, my name's Nia. I've been living in Charlotte for over a decade now. We were just discussing what brought us here today, and I would definitely say I definitely started noticing the destruction of communities and families and displacing people when I was probably like in high school, and they started expanding roads, neighborhoods, tearing down neighborhoods for luxury apartments, and we were just discussing like Plaza Midwood, South End, like how those neighborhoods, historically black, also just people who lived there for a long time, people who established families here, and they're just being pushed out without being educated. So like really the main reason why I came today is so I could have like firsthand accounts, but also just like the correct information to share with people so they don't feel so powerless. Also just so they know what's going on, because I do feel like a lot of times things happen and people don't know until they're happening, so they feel like they can't do anything about it at that point. So I definitely wanted to come today so I could share that information with people so they don't feel like they don't have any options.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm a community member. I've lived in Charlotte for about 4 years, coming on 5 years. I'm an electrical engineer. So I do a lot of construction prints for a utility company as a subcontractor in Western North Carolina. And a lot of the permitting that we do on behalf of this company is with NCDOT. So I have a lot of experience dealing with them and the things that they ask for specific designs. But things that I consider when we're building or making construction projects is like who could push back on it. And NCDOT's a main person we have to contend with or work with at NC, but also the property owners. So the people that have the property rights and easements. However, the people that we're dealing with there have large plots of property and they're in a rural white area. So their whims are all very considered and heavily, followed and followed through and get follow-ups and all this attention. But the idea here, and it's been historically true, is that because it's a majority black neighborhood, they want to just plow right through it and not tell nobody, and then just let it go out into the wind. So there's a lot of avenues to push back against it, and the biggest thing is going to be that the people who stand to lose their homes should do and should have the most say. But like legally they actually do because they have the property rights. And so they're just not expecting any pushback. Really, they're not expecting any organized voice. They're not expecting different groups to come together to also have people on the inside that are sympathetic to it as well. And these developers are not expecting that. They think that they can just build infrastructure that only benefits the ones that own it or the ones that are going to see the benefit from it. But what we really need are universal, accessible builds and infrastructure. And it's a huge component. I mean, I appreciate PSL having like the alternatives and like the solutions to it, because ultimately the solution is to move away from car dependency, because it's always going to be the issue is just traffic. And like the solution is never going to come with adding another lane or working at that. The solution is going to be getting more people on buses, on bikes, on trains, on trams, and having a high-speed rail. And this stuff doesn't get built because the people who own everything make more profit by making things more exclusive and putting premiums on that. And it just creates it perpetuates inequality.
Again, in case you all missed my name is Taylor. I think what's important for me is like just specifically about why this means so much to me. I think now, so I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland. For anyone that's unfamiliar, also right outside of DC, my parents are from Southeast DC. And DC, once known as the Chocolate City, is a place now that has experienced immense gentrification and has pushed its residents out to PG County. But the funny thing is that it didn't stop with that. What was the Chocolate City turned into PG County, which was a predominantly black and affluent county, that now has pushed those residents out into like Prince Charles County, and things like that. And I think like now I'm here in Charlotte, and I've been here for 4 years, and I'm witnessing this happen to another community, and that to say that it's not just Charlotte, it's everywhere. And so it's important to take a stand at some point so that we're able to replicate what that looks like in every city that we enter into. Right now, it's a highway expansion. Tomorrow, it's a building. The day after that is a shopping center. But it's always at the expense of the people who don't have the power to fight back. And that is why it's important always for us to look around the room that we see today and work together and fight against this and show up to meetings and organize.
Important for all of us to want to fight back against the I-77 expansion, because it shows that we are a community. Even though Charlotte's like a very big city, it definitely shows that there are people who've been here for a long time who don't want to leave and don't want something as stupid as a toll lane to be the reason they have to leave a place they've called home forever. Also, for all the new people that have moved here, it will also give them a sense of they belong here. You know, you don't want anyone to feel like they're being pushed out just because something as stupid as a toll lane, they can't afford to live here and now they have to leave. So I definitely think it's very important for us to fight against this so we can show like you can't do things to us without us having an input in it. And if you are going to do something, we all need to be included in that so we all can feel like we actually have a place in this city.
I've participated in some activities with PSL. I love the people there, and I love the activities that y'all do in the sake of socialism. I just wanted to say clearly that I have been working in NC Quick Pass for a couple of months now. The amount of lives that I've seen destroyed by these toll roads are absolutely horrendous. And there's little that that us as agents are able to do for any of these customers. And it pains me to see that there is another extension of I-77 again, while there's also construction of I-45 too. And none of these funds are being funded to these toll roads are getting back to the people whatsoever. And I want to try and make sure that people are educated on this, because in those neighborhoods, they don't know. And potentially other people who will be coming to NC Quick Pass and my walk-in center will probably never know either. And so I just want to make it aware that these toll roads suck, absolutely. And please do not go on them. I really implore you, do not go on them. But if you do, please be smart about it. Manage your accounts well, and if you need any advice, you guys come to me, because I work there 5 days a week, and we have awesome people who will give you the knowledge that they literally barely tell you in NC Quick Pass. They barely tell you any important information that you need to understand when you go on these toll roads. So please, do not go on these toll roads. It's barely going to be faster, and it's really not worth it. And I'm pretty sure the extension for I-77 will also have dynamic pricing, meaning that every 5 minutes it's going to change prices based on how much traffic there's going to be. So it's going to be possibly around $10 that you could possibly pay. So please, 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 everybody, do not go on these toll roads. They're horrible. And they will ruin your life, because after 4 months of non-payment, and I've been seeing people who have not been getting any kind of bills in their addresses. If that happens and there's non-payments for 4 months, you can get your registration on hold. And that's going to really suck, and you have to pay the entire amount. If you don't pay for the entire amount, the registration, well, you can kiss it goodbye, unless if you pay for it, all right? There's many other information about this, and if you come to our walk-in center in W.T. Harris, please, I will educate you, and me and my other coworkers will too. My managers understand what is going on. Some of them have been working for 20 years, and they will educate you on this probably a lot more in detail than I can. Thank you.
Okay. No.
Oh, me? Okay. I have a question. Has there been, speaking of toll roads, every time I'm on 77, the toll road is empty, right? What's the money showing us? Is the money showing us that people are actually traveling on them and that it's actually worth expanding the toll road? Is the money saying that we don't really care that nobody is on here, we just want to get paid either way and the traffic is going to be what it's going to be? Because I'm thinking, I'm driving on 77 and I look and I'm like, there is no room for you to go left or right, like without cutting into people's backyards, the cemeteries, all of that stuff. Has there been any thought given to going up or down?
I mean, the way I see it,
Meaning like an overpass, just straight shot from uptown to South Carolina, or an underpass? Like has any conversation been around that?
I mean, no, I think it's more so like, toll lanes aren't gonna work regardless of how you try to frame it, right? And then it's like, they're gonna have to go through black neighborhoods, because these are neighborhoods that have been disinvested, and so they're just stealing land and resources from these communities. And it's like, no matter how you try to frame it, toll lanes aren't a viable solution to it.
Of the air, the pollution, even like, this is going through a local cemetery that buries a lot of family members or people in the community. And the worry of mine is that it runs through those communities and just disenfranchises every single person in that neighborhood, or removes the cemeteries, and also causes pollution to people, and the effects, the environmental effects that these type of buildings put on the families. We've seen it in Brooklyn, when people in Brooklyn had to move, and the effects of that we've seen in many other scenarios. So that was just my concern, but that's all I got.
I think his point on the cemetery is very important. It's like, even in death, right? Black people still have to experience this racism landscape. So now I want to go into the positives, right? What alternatives do we have? We have to build a positive vision, right? We can't just get hung up on the negatives. We have to actually build something to fight towards, right? So what I mentioned earlier about the bus system, we can make buses free. Everybody here knows it's impossible to get around without a car, but it shouldn't have to be like that, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? A fast free bus system would mean less cars on the streets. Rather than building more paid express lanes for cars, existing lanes should be converted into bus-only routes, so buses run faster, and we can allocate more funding in our bus system so people don't have to wait over 30 minutes if they miss their bus. We can make our bus system fare-free, so more people ride the buses, something Charlotte already did during COVID, as I stated earlier. Right? Second, we can expand the light rail. The I-77 expansion will cost $3.2 billion, and that's double the cost of one blue line. So we could redirect that money currently being spent on highway construction and put that into public transportation. And not to mention earlier, we were talking about like every bomb dropped on Venezuela is money taken out of taxpayers' pockets. So we can take all that money that's being spent on wars, deportations, and tax cuts and put it into our infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. And so up here, this is a trolley system from the 30s, right? So we've seen that Charlotte already had an extensive trolley system, but it was uprooted for the highway expansion, right? 77. So, politicians and developers, they want to convince us that this is impossible. But countries around the world, such as China, are able to build thousands of miles of high-speed rail every year. In fact, so the trolley system, right? So we see that it can be possible, and we just have to fight for these concessions. Under capitalism, transportation is not a right, but another way to make money. Our transit systems are defunded and privatized, while money that could be used to improve them is spent on projects such as I-77. Right now, decisions are being made by corporate interests and developers, while those directly impacted are rarely consulted. So we are fighting for a socialist future where our resources are invested to serve people's needs and not profit. Reconstructing our transportation system will not happen overnight. However, the changes which are so desperately needed can only happen if we have the power to make them happen, not the corporations and the lobbyists who have failed us for decades. And next, I'll pass back to Trinity.
All right, so there is an upcoming city council meeting that will give updates on the I-77 expansion project, and NC Department of Transportation officials will be there in attendance. I want to mention this because they are the department that has authority over the I-77 expansion, but they are not in touch with the people who live in Charlotte. How are they able to make changes that affect Charlotte residents without any say from the people who actually live here? And when the majority of people we talk to who might be displaced have not even heard about the project. So, that being said, we want people to sign up for public comment and speak to their experiences and emphasize our demand to stop the expansion. We will get to speak directly to the developers that think we will sit idly by and allow them to tear apart whole communities. We are calling on NCDOT to go door to door to talk to all community members that they are displacing. No one should be unaware that their home may be on the line. Furthermore, we demand that NCDOT host a public in-person community meeting before voting on the development and directly invite all community members that will be affected. The community deserves a chance to have a say on the fate of the homes that they've lived in for most of their life. So, to keep it very real, city council meetings are a very boring bureaucratic process. I have personally been to city council meetings where the politicians are openly on their phones and purposely not listening to the people.
Shame.
Shame. But that is all the more reason we need to come together united, because we are powerful and we can make change. I encourage y'all to get creative and bring some signs as well. One idea is to use the chant, "We ain't paying no toll, power to the people." But just some rules. The signs cannot be too big, I believe, 8.5 by 11.
Something like that?
Yeah. Which is just a regular printer-sized piece of paper and no poles. A hack that I used to use is you bring a manila folder. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The manila folder. And you bring it in all folded, and then when you get there, you can open it up, and it's like bigger than the sign. But so yes, but the city council meeting was scheduled for this Saturday, but it was postponed due to the winter storm that's supposed to happen. So a new date has not been issued, but everyone get out your phones immediately and scan the QR code to receive updates.
I think I saw it on a More Perfect Union YouTube video when speaking about power, what the definition of power is. I think they said it was the organization of people and the organization of money. So resources, unfortunately, of course it's America, so, money talks, but also, it kind of goes into organizing with your neighbors and getting everybody on board and educating people. So, I think, just to kind of define what it means to be powerful.
The transition from when I grew up until now has been it's great and all, but I could definitely see the difference in how she was saying over here, the community and things like that, because for Black people specifically, when you separate us, that does make us feel like we're by ourselves. But when we are together in these neighborhoods and these communities, that's when the kids were outside. Neighbors will watch your kids, stuff like that. Even when you got off the bus, and I feel like that goes into the safety aspect of how people feel in Charlotte. And people can say on certain sides of Charlotte they feel unsafe, but it's at the same time that's going to be anywhere. It's not just because of one culture or one people. And I think whenever this thing happens with urban renewal, it doesn't just make people lose their housing, but it also makes people lose their humanity as a whole, because they feel like they're by themselves, nobody's going to look out for them and things like that. And I can also see that play into different spaces within Charlotte. And so I feel like even with PSL is very important because it's bringing us back together in more of like a moral type of way, integrity, things like that. But like y'all say, you know, capitalism ruins everything. And so I'm glad I didn't come today, even though I was, like, you know, like I am from here. It's still important to have like solid information to know. And even if it's, you know, people that haven't been here for that long, but y'all are still going to go look for that facts and information. And so also when you were talking about, Jamel, the prison system and how that's connected, and things like that, I feel like that was very important. And so, yeah, that's what I got from today. So thank you.
Better to where historically those who have been disenfranchised, those who have been less fortunate have been mistreated historically. And I guess like being from Detroit, you know, I feel like firsthand I've encountered a lot of that, like personally. I guess like when it comes to things like redlining, urban decay, the lack of like proper resources for like, you know, people within neighborhoods. And I guess like even though Detroit's a big city, like public transportation there is like terrible. And I feel like you would think that like, I don't know much about it, but I feel like you would think that like it shouldn't be so hard to create alternatives. And I feel like seeing the same thing happen down here with I-77, I feel like should we not like, you know, speak out against it, I guess you're kind of going to see like Detroit, like in places like, you know, the historically black neighborhoods in Charlotte. And I feel like, yeah, like I feel like we need to like speak against that, yeah.
So my name is Nick. Actually, I was gonna say that I used to live in Detroit too. I worked with Rashida Tlaib. I remember there was an expansion project where they were gonna build this another bridge to Canada, and what it was going to do, it was going to destroy a lot of these neighborhoods coming into the U.S. And then Detroit was going to pay a lot of this, and the Canadian side wasn't going to pay anything. Anyways, a lot similar to this. So the meeting that was there that was focusing on building this bridge and how it was going to destroy it, I remember the people from Detroit they're a lot different than the people from Charlotte. It makes sense, right? It's like, so when they all came together, I remember they did not let that go through. Like every single person in that meeting was just, I thought they were gonna attack this guy, but they should have, you know. So the second part of that is that the community was educated there. They knew that this wasn't going to benefit them. It was only going to harm them. So number one. And the second thing I wanted to say that they also had the right representation. So for example, at that time, I was with Rashida Tlaib, which we all know is the right representative for a person like that, right? So from Detroit, she was very proud of being a representative in Detroit, and she also fought for the people of Detroit. So that had a huge impact, which kind of goes into the second part of it. I mean, I'm not sure what is the United Front we can do differently for the council meetings. I mean, these people, like a lot of times, like again, I'm not sure some of you guys may like those city council people or whatnot, but I mean, most of that city council is minorities, right? These are all like black and brown folks, and they're not the right representatives. So I think it's also like, we also have to think of like the right representation in these places, and educating our neighbors. So I think someone was saying that we have to educate our friends and whatnot. So we are a united community with the right representation. So that would be just kind of like how I was going to connect to it. So.
So even though I'm not immediately in the neighborhood where the widening is going to be at, it affects how I get to and from work. You know, either I take, you know, my wife and I pick the house where we live because of our access to mass transit, because of our access to a greenway, because I have the ability to bike to work. I can bike to the goal line if I need to. I don't have to drive if I don't need to. But I also live in the Lakeview neighborhood, and I have a lot of neighbors who are dependent on cars and are dependent on, you know, access to roads. But we're going to be affected by this because it's not just me in my neighborhood that bikes to work. I'm not the only person I see using the greenway at 5 o'clock in the morning to go walk to work, to walk to their job. And, you know, this isn't gonna be a project that's done in 5 years and then, you know, that entire time, there's gonna be whole sections of roads, greenways that we can't use, not to mention we're in an area where we're losing most of our green space. So
I was really interested in I-77, so I did a deep dive into the funding structure for the initial part of the I-77. So it was a $650 million road, and there was a consortium of private equity led by a Spanish multinational that brought $250 million forward, right? This is private equity money from sovereign wealth funds and other wealthy people, right? And then for the rest of that money, they got loans from the federal government, and then they got a 50-year contract to take all of the revenue that comes from the toll, less the amounts that go into building the highway and maintaining that highway. I did the math, and it's hard to kind of figure this out because everything is kind of not open, right? So I did the math conservatively. Just the gross revenue over 50 years to this consortium from that $250 million initial investment would be about $6 billion. That's about a 24x return on investment, right? Usually what happens in these situations, the government gets bonds and you pay some amount of interest or whatever else it is, but you pay for the road, and that's how you do it. But instead, the government just gave away this whole entire thing to private equity. Why? Right? And now we're being told that this thing that's going to cost $3.2 billion, it'll be funded if they do this with some creative mechanism that allows the tolls to pay for the road. But what they're not telling you is that that upfront cost is really just an investment that really wealthy people across the world are doing to do, in essence, what we're seeing, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's in Venezuela, whether it's in Sudan. We're literally colonizing our own home. So, I appreciate so much of what you guys are doing, because you guys are telling the stories of, hey, these are neighborhoods that are going to be ripped apart. Like, why are we ripping apart these neighborhoods, predominantly communities of black folks and folks of color, right? Like, why are we doing that? Just to expand a highway that's just going to have traffic again, right? Like, what, so we can have more shiny buildings, another Target, another Marshalls? Like, what's the point of that? What's the point of a city if it's not led by the residents and the flavor of the community? Right? So I'm here to learn too, so I just want to say thank you to everyone for caring about this. This matters a lot. As a county commissioner, if I get that seat, I would be able to get myself on a regional transportation authority that combines the city of Charlotte, the county, surrounding counties, and the towns. Though Charlotte City has 31 votes on this, they can throw a wrench into this. That's where the mechanism is, right? So this isn't, like, I recognize that the stories are important, but we gotta lobby the folks in the commission, we gotta lobby the folks in city council, we gotta lobby the towns, and that's how we throw a wrench in this. And if there is a situation where toll lanes need to get built and all of that, we're not gonna let $6 billion or whatever it is just go to rich people's pockets. No, we're gonna make sure that the impact on the community is as limited as possible, and whatever money that's generated, if that is a thing, it goes into funding transit, into funding these neighborhoods, into funding these schools. There's no reason that we should just give away this money. Thank you.